Welcome to the Chosen One. Listen to me real close right now. What they did to you was disgusting, and heaven saw it all. Every whisper, every lie, every fake smile while they plotted your downfall behind closed doors. People are furious, not just in the streets, but in the spirit. Angels are pacing. The throne room is stirring. Because what they tried to do to you wasn't just an attack on flesh and blood, it was an assault on heaven's chosen. They came for someone innocent, someone who minded their own business, paid their bills, loved their family, and walked in integrity. But that wasn't enough for them, was it? Your peace made them sick. Your joy felt like a slap in their face. So they did what demons do. They twisted the truth, made lies look real, and painted you as the villain in a story you never even signed up for. Have you ever been attacked when all you did was mind your business? Ever been hated just for breathing? Ever had your name dragged through the mud by people who couldn't find one real thing wrong with you? If you're nodding your head right now, if your chest is getting tight, if tears are forming, stay with me. Because what I'm about to show you will explain why they came for you, why their attacks failed, and why God is about to flip this entire script in ways that will leave them speechless. See, they thought they were building a case against you. They thought if they dug deep enough, long enough, hard enough, they'd find something, anything, a crack in your character, a skeleton in your closet, some dirt to justify their hatred. But here's what happened when the investigator started asking around. And before I go any further, thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message is already resonating with your soul, go ahead. If this is hitting your spirit already, type, "I'm still standing," in the comments right now. Because what they discovered when they went looking for your dirt is about to shock you. What came out of people's mouths when they were asked about you is going to make you weep, not from pain, but from vindication. The same silence they mocked became the loudest testimony. The same isolation they laughed at became your protection. And the same boring, disciplined life they called insignificant just became evidence in heaven's courtroom. Stay with me, chosen one, because your enemies just handed you the greatest gift they never meant to give. Why do they always come for the quiet ones? Why do they hunt down the peaceful? Why is it that the person who never started a fight always ends up in the middle of a war they never declared? Let me paint you a picture that's going to cut deep into your soul, because I know some of you are living this nightmare right now. Picture this. You wake up every morning, say your prayers, kiss your family goodbye, go to work, come home, mind your own business. You're not perfect. Lord knows none of us are, but you're trying. You're walking in integrity. You're paying your bills, treating people with respect, keeping your word. You're that person who returns extra change at the store, who holds the door open, who actually means it when you ask, "How are you doing?" But somewhere in the shadows, in the dark corners where envy breeds and jealousy festers, they're watching you. And your peace? It's making them sick. The wicked plots against the just and gnashes at him with his teeth. Psalm 37:12. They couldn't stand your calm. They couldn't stomach your consistency. So they did what predators do when they spot someone they think is defenseless. They gathered the pack. Like wolves circling a lamb, they thought your silence was weakness. But oh, how wrong they were about what silence really means in the kingdom of God. First, they started small. A whisper here, a raised eyebrow there. Have you noticed how they always... Don't you think it's weird that... I'm not saying anything bad, but... You know that word, but. The verbal dagger that comes right before the assassination. Then they got bolder. They turned your own family against you. Your own blood. People who sat at your dinner table, who knew your heart, who watched you sacrifice for others. Suddenly they're looking at you sideways, questioning motives they never questioned before. Your friends, the ones you thought would ride or die with you, they started distancing themselves. Not all at once, that would be too obvious. No, they were strategic. Phone calls got shorter. Invitations stopped coming. Group chats went quiet when you were added. You could feel the shift, but you couldn't prove it. And at work, Lord have mercy. Co-workers who used to joke with you at the coffee machine suddenly became formal, cold, professional. Meetings you should have been in happened without you. Projects you started got reassigned. Your voice in the room got smaller and smaller until you wondered if anyone could hear you at all. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. Some of you know the sting of being accused when you were the only one telling the truth. Some of you know what it feels like to be painted as the problem when you were actually part of the solution. Some of you have felt the crushing weight of false accusations, while the real troublemakers stood in the background, smiling, watching your world crumble. You probably asked yourself 1,000 times, what did I do? What did I say? How did I become the villain in a story where I was just trying to live my life? And maybe, just maybe, you started to believe their lies. Maybe you started questioning your own memory, your own motives, your own worth. Maybe you looked in the mirror and wondered if there was something fundamentally wrong with you that you couldn't see. But stop right there, because what they did to you reveals everything about them and nothing about you. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Ephesians 6:12. This wasn't just human jealousy. This was spiritual warfare. You were targeted not because you were weak, but because you carried something they desperately wanted, but could never earn: peace, integrity, favor. They saw the light in you, and it exposed the darkness in them. Your authenticity made their fakeness feel like cheap plastic. Your genuine spirit made their masks feel heavy. So instead of rising to meet your energy, they decided to drag you down to theirs. But here's what they didn't know. Here's what they couldn't see, because they don't operate in the spirit. Innocence is not weakness. Innocence is evidence, and it stands as testimony in God's courtroom. Every day you chose peace over revenge, you were building a case. Every time you bit your tongue instead of clapping back, you were collecting evidence. Every moment you walked away from drama instead of feeding it, you were stacking receipts in heaven's filing system. They thought they were destroying your reputation. They thought they were dismantling your character. They thought they were writing your story. But God was writing something completely different. While they were busy building their false narrative, spreading their poison, turning hearts against you, heaven was taking notes. Every lie they told was being recorded. Every manipulation was being documented. Every false accusation was being filed under evidence of persecution. And now it's time for discovery. Because when the investigators started making phone calls, when they started digging into your life, when they started asking the hard questions about who you really are, that's when everything they built began to crumble. Now listen, while you were being crucified in the court of public opinion, something powerful was happening behind the scenes, something your enemies never saw coming, something that would turn their carefully crafted lies into the very weapon that would vindicate you. They built a false narrative, didn't they? Brick by brick, lie by lie. They painted you as unstable, difficult, problematic. They whispered in corners, spread poison through text messages, turned your name into a cautionary tale. Every family gathering became a tribunal. Every workplace conversation became an assassination attempt on your character. But here's what they didn't know. Truth has a way of walking into the room uninvited. You see, when lies are all you have, you need volume to make them believable. But truth? Truth whispers, and the whole world leans in to listen. They came digging for skeletons in your closet, armed with shovels of suspicion and pickaxes of presumption. They were certain they'd find something, some dark secret, some hidden flaw, some crack in your foundation they could exploit. They dug, and they dug, and they dug. But all they found was folded clothes of integrity, clean laundry, paid bills, honest conversations. A life lived in the light, even when no one was watching. The very evidence they thought would condemn you became the testimony that would crown you. Do you understand what I'm telling you? While they were building their case in the shadows, you were building your character in the light. While they were plotting your downfall, you were praying for your enemies. While they were spreading lies, you were living truth. Matthew 5:11 says, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me." Falsely, chosen one. Falsely. God knew this day would come. He knew they would lie about you. And He's been preparing your vindication since before they even opened their mouths. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's where heaven's plot twist begins to unfold. Do you want to know what happened when the investigators started asking about you? When they knocked on doors, made phone calls, sent emails, when they reached out to your old classmates, former co-workers, distant relatives, people who owed you nothing, people who hadn't spoken to you in years. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you will make you fall to your knees in gratitude. Picture this scene. The investigator, clipboard in hand, expecting to collect a mountain of dirt. Your enemies, sitting back with smug smiles, confident that this would be the final nail in your coffin. They knew people would have stories. They knew your past would come back to haunt you. But then the phone calls started coming back. Actually, they were always respectful. I never had a problem with them. They kept to themselves, but they were kind. Honestly, I wish I had more people like them in my life. One by one, call by call, interview by interview. The narrative they worked so hard to build began to crumble. Your enemies sat there watching their lies dissolve in real time. They expected a flood of complaints. Instead, they got a chorus of character witnesses they never knew existed. People who barely knew you were defending you. People who had no reason to lie were telling the truth. Proverbs 27:14 says, "A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold." You thought you were building a quiet life. God was building you a fortress of reputation that no lie could penetrate. But here's what really broke them. Here's what made them furious beyond measure. Not only could they not find dirt on you, but every good word about you was a mirror reflecting their own darkness back at them. When people said you were honest, it highlighted their deception. When people said you were peaceful, it exposed their chaos. When people said you minded your own business, it revealed their obsession with yours. They set the light on you, but the glare revealed them. They thought they were exposing you, but they ended up exposing themselves. Every investigation became an indictment of their own character. This is what happens when you live with integrity. Your life becomes a weapon that you never have to wield. The same silence they mocked became your strongest defense. The same isolation they laughed at became your protection. The same boring, disciplined life they called insignificant became evidence that you were exactly who you said you were. Romans 12:19 reminds us, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." You didn't have to defend yourself, because your life was already your defense. You didn't have to speak, because your actions had been speaking for years. They tried to assassinate your character and ended up testifying on your behalf. Every attempt to tear you down became another brick in the monument of your integrity. Every lie they told made the truth shine brighter. Can you feel it? Can you feel the shift happening? the tables turning, the scales balancing. This isn't just about vindication, chosen one. This is about revelation. God is showing you and showing them that when you live in alignment with His will, even your enemies become unwilling witnesses to your faithfulness. But the story doesn't end here. Oh no, we're just getting started. Because what happened next, when even those who never liked you couldn't find a single ugly thing to say, that's when the real earthquake began. That's when the foundation of their lies started to crack so loud that even the deaf could hear it. Are you ready for what comes next? Because what I'm about to reveal will show you just how rare your walk really is. Now here's where it gets wild, chosen one. Here's where the universe started laughing at their little scheme. See, when they went digging for dirt on you, they had to ask around. They had to. Because that's how character assassination works. You need witnesses, you need testimonies, you need somebody to co-sign the lie. So they started making calls. First, they called your old co-workers. You know, the ones from that job you left 3 years ago, the ones you barely talked to except for good morning and have a blessed day. These investigators were sure they'd find something there. Some workplace drama, some attitude, some reason to justify the hatred. But listen to what happened. Your old supervisor picked up the phone and said, "Are you serious? We're talking about the same person?" They were one of the most respectful people we ever had here. Never caused problems, always on time, never talked behind anyone's back. The jealous co-worker who used to roll her eyes when you got promoted, even she couldn't lie. Look, I didn't like how perfect they seemed, but I can't say they did anything wrong to me. One by one, these distant voices, people who owed you nothing, became echoes of truth. Even the quiet witnesses, the ones who owed you nothing, became echoes of truth. They called your old classmates from high school, you know, the ones you haven't spoken to in decades. People who barely remembered your face but somehow remembered your character. Oh yeah, they were always kind, quiet but kind, never in any drama. Your ex-neighbors, the ones who used to peek through their curtains, they kept their yard clean, always spoke when they saw you, never had loud parties. Good people. That person from church who you thought didn't like you. They served faithfully, tithed regularly, never gossiped in the hallway. I may not have been close to them, but I respected them. Do you understand what's happening here, chosen one? Your life was speaking for you when your mouth was silent. Every small act of integrity you thought nobody noticed, somebody noticed. Every time you chose kindness over cruelty, respect over revenge, silence over slander, it was being recorded, not just by heaven, but by human hearts. The Bible says in Proverbs 27-14, "A good name is more desirable than great riches." You built that good name one interaction at a time, one choice at a time, one day at a time. And now, in your darkest hour, that good name was rising up like an army of witnesses. That's how rare your walk is. Even those who never liked you couldn't co-sign a lie. Think about that for a moment. Think about how clean your life had to be for people who had no reason to defend you to still speak truth. People who gained nothing from protecting your reputation. People who could have easily said, "Yeah, they were weird," or "I always felt something was off about them." But they couldn't, because your character was so consistent, so solid, so real, that even casual observers couldn't deny what they'd witnessed. Your enemies were furious. They'd spent months building this narrative, gathering their little army of accusers, preparing for your public execution. But when they went looking for ammunition, all they found were testimonies of your integrity. The investigators started getting confused. Wait, so nobody has anything negative to say? Nobody saw any red flags? No angry outbursts? No questionable behavior? No concerning patterns? Nothing. Your silence had been speaking volumes, while their noise had been revealing nothing. Matthew 5:11 says, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me." Jesus knew this day would come. He knew that your righteousness would be your defense when human voices tried to tear you down. But here's what really broke their spirits. The people they expected to turn against you, your closest friends, your family members, the ones who knew your struggles, your mistakes, your humanity. These people didn't just defend you, they defended you with fire. Are you out of your mind asking me that question? Do you know what kind of person you're talking about? Do you know how many times they've helped me, prayed for me, been there when nobody else was? Your sister, who used to argue with you about everything. My sibling has more integrity in their pinky finger than most people have in their whole body. Your best friend who's seen you at your worst. If they're the villain in this story, then I don't know what good looks like. Your pastor, who's counseled you through your darkest seasons. In 20 years of ministry, I've never met anyone who takes their walk with God more seriously. If you've ever felt defended without opening your mouth, drop "Truth protects me" below, because what happened next will show you that God doesn't just vindicate the righteous, He humiliates those who come against them. The investigators started running out of people to call. They'd gone through your entire circle, expanded to acquaintances, reached out to distant connections. And the story was the same everywhere they turned. Good person, respectful, trustworthy, never caused problems. Solid character, man, woman of their word. The narrative they'd spent months building was crumbling in real time. Because you can manufacture lies, but you can't manufacture a lifetime of consistent character. You can twist recent events, but you can't rewrite decades of interactions. Isaiah 54:17 promises, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." But look at how God condemned those lying tongues, not by striking them down, but by raising up a chorus of truth-tellers who had no agenda except honesty. Your enemies had to sit there and listen as person after person demolished their carefully crafted fiction. They had to hear stranger after stranger describe the same character traits they'd been trying to deny. Silence spoke louder than slander. Your refusal to defend yourself had forced the world to defend you. Your decision to let your life speak had given your life the lewdest voice in the room. And in that moment, your accusers realized something that made their blood run cold. They weren't just fighting you, they were fighting reality itself. But here's where the story takes a turn that will make you understand why God allowed all of this to happen. But here's where it gets wild. Chosen one. Here's where the tables turned in ways they never saw coming. See, they thought they were conducting an investigation on you. They thought they were building a case, gathering evidence, stacking witnesses against your character. They were so confident, so sure that if they just dug deep enough, they'd find the dirt to justify their hatred. But God, God had other plans. Because every single question they asked about you became a mirror held up to their own face. Every probe into your character became a spotlight on their darkness. They set the light on you, but the glare revealed them. Listen to me carefully when that investigator started asking your old co-workers about you. Something beautiful and terrifying happened simultaneously. Beautiful for you, terrifying for them. Your former supervisor said, "They were the most respectful employee I ever had." Your old neighbor said, "Never caused any trouble, always kept to themselves." That classmate from high school said, "Honestly, they were kind of boring, never got into drama." Boring, can you imagine? The very thing they mocked you for, your quiet life, your discipline, your boundaries, became your bulletproof vest. But here's what shook them to their core. Every good word about you was a crack in their own mask. Every testimony of your character was an indictment of theirs. Think about it. If you're so terrible, if you're the villain they painted you to be, then why couldn't anyone find evidence? Why did strangers defend you? Why did people who owed you nothing speak up for your integrity? The Bible says in Proverbs 27-19, "As water reflects the face, so one's life reflects the heart." They thought they were examining your heart, but they were really seeing their own reflection, and they hated what they saw. You know what happened in that moment? The investigator started asking different questions, not about you anymore, but about them. Why are you so obsessed with this person? What did they actually do to you? Do you have any proof of these accusations? And that's when the stammering started. That's when the stories began to change. That's when they realized they had built their entire campaign on feelings, not facts, on jealousy, not justice, on their own insecurity projected onto your success. You weren't the villain, dear one. You were the mirror. And when they looked at you, really looked at you through this investigation, they saw everything they'd been hiding from themselves. Your consistency exposed their chaos. Your integrity highlighted their deception. Your peace revealed their inner torment. This is what happens when God allows your enemies to examine you under a microscope. Psalm 139-23, -24 says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." But see, David was confident when he prayed that prayer. He knew what the search would reveal. Just like you should be confident now, because the same God who vindicated David has vindicated you. For those of you in your 50-second, 60-second, 70-second watching this, you know this truth. You've lived long enough to see that life's greatest tests don't just reveal what we're made of, they reveal what everyone is made of. The pressure that creates diamonds in some people creates dust in others. You've seen marriages tested by hardship. Some couples grow stronger, others crumble and blame each other. You've watched friends during crisis. Some show up, others disappear. You've witnessed family during inheritance disputes. Some stay united, others show their true colors. This investigation was your test, but it was their test too, and they failed spectacularly. Every lie they told became a brick in their own prison. Every false accusation became evidence of their own character assassination. Every attempt to destroy your reputation became a monument to their own moral bankruptcy. The investigator didn't just clear your name, they exposed theirs. They didn't just find your innocence, they uncovered their guilt. Not legal guilt, but spiritual guilt, moral guilt. The kind that eats at your soul in the middle of the night. Jesus said in Matthew 7-2, "For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." They measured you with hatred, so hatred consumed them. They judged you with lies, so truth exposed them. They attacked you with malice, so their own malice became their downfall. You want to know why they're so quiet now? Why the ones who were so loud with accusations have gone silent? Because they've seen themselves reflected in this whole process, and they can't stand what they see. That's the power of a mirror, chosen one. It doesn't lie, it doesn't flatter, it doesn't hide. It simply reflects. And you? You've been God's mirror in their lives. Not by choice, maybe. Not by design, certainly. But by divine appointment. Your very existence became a constant reminder of what they could have been if they'd chosen integrity over image, character over charisma, truth over triumph at any cost. That's why they hated you so much. Not because of what you did, but because of what you represented. Not because you threatened their position, but because you exposed their pretense. The mirror doesn't attack the person looking into it. The mirror simply reflects reality. And sometimes, reality is so painful that people would rather break the mirror than face the truth. But God's mirrors don't break that easily, do they? Chosen one, you're still standing, still reflecting, still exposing truth simply by being who you are. And now the whole world can see what you've always known, that the real villains were the ones pointing fingers. The real criminals were the ones filing false charges. The real darkness was in the hearts of those claiming to walk in light. But here's what's about to happen next that's going to blow your mind. Because while they thought they were digging your grave, they were actually digging their own. And what's about to rise from that ground is going to shock everyone who thought you were buried for good. And then, something beautiful started happening. You see, dear chosen one, when God decides to flip a script, He doesn't do it quietly. He doesn't whisper the vindication. He roars it through the very mouths that once spoke against you. Picture this scene with me, because this is where their carefully constructed house of cards begins to crumble. The investigator is sitting across from Susan from accounting. Sweet Susan, who always minded her own business, who barely spoke to you but watched everything. And when asked about your character, Susan leans forward and says something that makes the investigator's pen stop moving. You know what? I've worked here for 15 years, and that person never once raised their voice, never once started drama. Actually, now that you mention it, they were probably the only one who didn't participate in office gossip. Can you feel that shift happening? That moment when the narrative they spent months building starts to crack. Because here's what the enemy never calculated. Truth has a voice of its own. The investigator moves to the next person, then the next. And with each conversation, the tower of lies they built gets shakier. Person after person, the same story emerges. Not planned, not rehearsed, just truth spilling out like water finding its level. They kept to themselves, but they were always respectful. I never saw them do anything questionable. Honestly, I always wondered why anyone had a problem with them. Do you hear that sound, chosen one? That's the sound of their narrative collapsing in real time. But here's where it gets devastating for your enemies. The very people who believed their lies, the ones who nodded along, who whispered in corners, who treated you differently, these same people start asking the question that haunts liars. Wait, why would anyone go this hard at someone so peaceful? That question is a killer, isn't it? Because when you attack someone viciously and the investigation reveals they were actually gentle, when you wage war against someone and discover they were harmless, when you destroy someone's reputation and find out they were innocent, what does that make you? The Bible tells us in Proverbs 26-27, whoever digs a pit will fall into it. And baby, your enemies just dug themselves into a crater. They tried to build a tower of lies, brick by brick, story by story, whisper by whisper. But here's what they forgot about towers built on lies. One truth is enough to topple the whole structure. And that truth? It wasn't even something you had to say. It was something you had already lived. Every day you chose peace over drama. Every time you walked away instead of fighting back. Every moment you bit your tongue when you could have destroyed them with words, you were building evidence. You were stacking up testimonies. You were creating a fortress of integrity that no lie could penetrate. And now that fortress is protecting you while their tower of lies is falling on their heads. Can you see the irony? The very silence they mocked became the loudest defense. The very boring life they ridiculed became the strongest testimony. The very integrity they tried to destroy became the weapon that destroyed them. This is how God works, beloved. He doesn't just vindicate you, he uses your enemy's own weapons against them. Like David with Goliath's sword, God takes what they meant for evil and turns it into your victory. But here's where it gets even more beautiful. The investigator isn't just hearing good things about you, They're hearing extraordinary things. People are remembering acts of kindness they forgot, moments of grace under pressure, times you helped when no one was watching. Actually, now that I think about it, they once stayed late to help me finish a project when my kid was sick. They always held the elevator for people. I remember them bringing soup when my mom was in the hospital. Your enemies wanted dirt, but all they found was gold. They went digging for skeletons and discovered treasures. They searched for darkness and found nothing but light. Every person interviewed became another nail in the coffin of their lies. And this is when their supporters start to panic. Because when lies collapse, they don't fall slowly. They avalanche. And everyone who co-signed the lie gets buried under the weight of the truth. The people who spread their gossip are now questioning themselves. What if I was wrong? The ones who chose sides are now wondering if they backed the wrong horse. The supporters who cheered their attacks are now distancing themselves faster than rats leaving a sinking ship, because nobody wants to be associated with liars when the truth comes to light. Isaiah 54:17 promises us, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." But notice it doesn't just say the weapon won't work, it says it won't prosper. That means not only will their attacks fail, but they'll backfire. Their lies won't just be exposed, they'll be reversed. And that's exactly what's happening right now in your situation. They lost more than control. They lost the story. And once the story breaks, dear chosen one, it can never be rebuilt. Because now everyone knows. The investigator knows. The witnesses know. Even the liars know that their narrative was garbage. They can't take back what they said. They can't unsay the lies. They can't undo the damage to their own credibility. They wanted to destroy your reputation, but they ended up obliterating their own. This is divine justice in action. If you've seen God flip a narrative before, share this video right now. Somebody needs to hear this tonight. Because what I'm about to show you next will prove that your boring life wasn't boring at all. It was brilliant strategy from heaven itself. You see, while they were dancing in chaos, creating drama, and living recklessly, you were building something they couldn't see, something that would become your ultimate protection when the storm came. And when that storm hit, only one house was left standing. And here's where it gets beautiful, chosen one. Here's where heaven starts laughing at the enemy's strategy. You know what drove them absolutely insane? Your discipline, your routine, your boring life that they mocked behind your back. While they were out there posting every meal, every drama, every emotional breakdown for the world to see, you were home, reading, praying, working, building something real in the quiet. They called you antisocial, said you thought you were too good for their chaos, whispered that you were weird, stuck up, living like some kind of monk. And you started to believe them, didn't you? Started wondering if maybe you were missing out. Maybe you should be more like them, louder, wilder, more fun. But listen to what the investigator found when they started digging into your life. Nothing. Not one Friday night regret. Not one messy relationship. Not one scandal. Not one screenshot of you talking trash. Not one video of you acting a fool. Your phone was clean. Your friendships were clean. Your conscience was clean. Matthew 7:24 says, "Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock." While they danced in chaos, dear one, you built a house on rock. And when the storm came, when the investigation started, when the questions began flying, when they needed dirt, only one was still standing. You. Your consistency became their nightmare. Because what do you attack when there's nothing to attack? How do you twist a life that's already straight? How do you expose someone who's been living in the light? They went looking for your dirt and found discipline. They searched for your secrets and found prayer. They hunted for your scandals and found service. They dug for your darkness and found more light. Do you understand the irony here? The very lifestyle they mocked, the early bedtimes, the quiet weekends, the simple pleasures, the boundaries they called boring, that became your shield. That became your testimony. That became your vindication. Proverbs 21:5 declares, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty." While they were profiting from drama, you were investing in character. While they were rich in followers, you were wealthy in integrity. And when the books got audited, when the real accounting began, guess whose ledger was in the black? Yours. Your boring became bulletproof. Your routine became your reputation. Your discipline became your defense. Think about David Young, overlooked, stuck watching sheep while his brothers went to war. Boring job, quiet fields, no spotlight, no applause, just him, the sheep, and God. But that same boring season taught him to kill lions and bears with his bare hands. That same quiet preparation made him ready for Goliath. 1 Samuel 17:37, "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Your boring life wasn't wasted time, it was warrior training. Every morning you chose discipline over indulgence. You were building strength. Every night you chose rest over recklessness. You were building wisdom. Every weekend you chose peace over parties. You were building character. And now, when the giants came for you, when the investigation began, when they needed to find something, anything, to justify their hatred, your boring life became their dead end. Your routine became their roadblock. Your discipline became their defeat. They couldn't find one text message out of line, not one compromising photo, not one witness to testify against your character. Your boring life had become a fortress that their lies couldn't penetrate. And here's what's making them furious. They realize now that while they were busy performing for the crowd, you were preparing for the caling. While they were collecting likes, you were collecting light. While they were building their image, you were building your integrity. Psalm 1-3 promises, "That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers." You planted yourself by living water. Chosen one, you watered your soul with truth. You fertilized your character with faithfulness. And now, in this season, the season of investigation, the season of scrutiny, the season of testing, you're bearing fruit. Sweet fruit, clean fruit, fruit without worms. And they're choking on the taste of your victory because there's nothing bitter in it, nothing poisoned, nothing that can be twisted or contaminated or used against you. Your boring life just became the most exciting testimony they never wanted to hear. But here's where this story takes an even more powerful turn. Because when the investigator started asking about you, when the truth started coming out, when witness after witness confirmed your character, something shifted in the spiritual realm. What happens when heaven's evidence room gets filled with testimonies of your faithfulness? Now listen carefully, because I'm about to pull back the curtain on something that will absolutely blow your mind. All those years they mocked your solitude. All those times they laughed at your quiet Saturday nights while they were out painting the town red. All those moments they called you boring, antisocial, too serious for your own good. They had no idea they were mocking your armor. You see, chosen one, what looked like loneliness to them was actually God's protection program in full effect. What felt like isolation to you was heaven's strategic positioning. While they were out there creating evidence trails of their own destruction, you were home, safely tucked away in divine solitude, building an unshakable foundation they could never touch. They laughed at your solitude. Now that same solitude has become your bulletproof vest. Think about it really. Think about it. Where were you when they were making their mistakes? Home. Where were you when drama was erupting in every corner of your social circle? Home. Where were you when compromise was calling everyone's name? Home. Seeking God's face, minding your own business, living a life so clean it made them sick with envy. The Bible says in Psalm 91:1, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." You thought you were hiding from people. God knew you were hiding in Him. And now that hiding place has become your fortress. Every Friday night you stayed in while they went out. That was God keeping your name out of conversations that would have destroyed lesser souls. Every party invitation you declined. That was heaven redirecting you away from associations that would have given your enemies ammunition. Every quiet evening you spent reading, praying, reflecting, instead of running the streets. That was divine strategy, disguised as social rejection. You felt left out. God saw you as set apart. But here's where it gets wild. When that investigator started digging, when they went searching for dirt, for compromising situations, for witnesses to your supposed darkness, where did they look? They looked in all the places you weren't. They searched through all the drama you avoided. They interviewed people from scenes you never participated in. And what did they find? Nothing, because you weren't there to find. Jesus understood this protection. When he stood before Pilate, accused of crimes he never committed, questioned about plots he never hatched, he was silent. Not because he was afraid, not because he was guilty, but because his life had already spoken. His character was his defense. His integrity was his lawyer. Matthew 26:63 tells us, "But Jesus remained silent, and that silence, it thundered louder than any accusation his enemies could manufacture." The same silence mocked yesterday becomes the loudest defense today. Daniel in the lion's den, do you think he was chatting with those beasts? No, he was quiet, trusting, resting in God's protection, while his enemies waited outside for the sounds of his destruction. But morning came, and Daniel emerged untouched, not because he fought the lions, but because God shut their mouths. Your solitude was your lion's den. Your quiet life was your fiery furnace. And when your enemies threw you in, expecting to hear the sounds of your demise, all they heard was silence. Divine, protected, powerful silence. And that silence drove them crazy. Because, see, they needed you to be messy. They needed you to have skeletons. They needed you to slip up, act out, give them something, anything to justify their hatred. But your disciplined life, your boring consistency, your predictable righteousness, it exposed them. It made their chaos look chaotic. It made their drama look dramatic. It made their compromise look compromising. Your solitude wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Your isolation wasn't rejection, it was divine selection. God was pulling you back, pulling you away, pulling you out of situations that would have given your enemies the very weapons they needed to destroy you. Every night you felt lonely. God was positioning you for vindication. Every time you felt forgotten, heaven was remembering every detail of your faithfulness. Every moment you felt invisible, the Most High was making you untouchable. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." But here's what most people miss: the weapons don't prosper, because God doesn't let you get near them in the first place. Your enemies wanted to find you in compromising positions, but God had you positioned in prayer. They wanted to catch you in lies, but truth was your native language. They wanted to expose your associations, but your strongest association was with the Almighty. Type protected if you know God has covered you when people tried to uncover you. Because right now, as I'm speaking these words, there are some of you feeling that holy confirmation rising in your chest. You're remembering all those times you felt excluded, and now you're realizing you were actually being protected. You're thinking about all those social circles you never quite fit into, and now you're understanding that God was keeping you out of places where your light would have been dimmed. Your solitude was strategic. Your silence was supernatural. Your separation was salvation. And now, when they went looking for your dirt, all they found was clean soil. When they searched for your scandals, all they discovered was your stability. When they hunted for your hypocrisy, all they uncovered was your authenticity. The very thing they mocked became the very thing that protected you. But here's what's about to happen next, and this is where it gets absolutely explosive, because when God's protection becomes this obvious, when His favor becomes this undeniable, when His vindication becomes this public, your enemies don't just lose the battle, they lose their minds. And now we arrive at the moment that changes everything forever. Picture this with me, chosen one. Close your eyes and see it clearly. There's a courtroom not made of marble and mahogany, but carved from starlight and thunder. The judge isn't wearing black robes. He's clothed in righteousness that burns brighter than 10,000 suns. This is heaven's courtroom, where every whispered lie gets weighed against eternal truth. Your enemies thought they were building a case in the streets. They had no idea they were actually presenting evidence in the spirit. Listen closely, because what happened in that divine courtroom is about to blow your mind and heal your heart all at the same time. When your accusers stood up to present their charges, they were confident. They had their scripts memorized, their lies polished to perfection. They pointed their crooked fingers and said, "This one is guilty. Look at how we've suffered. Look at what they've done." But here's where the eternal plot twist begins. The judge of all creation leaned forward and asked one simple question: present your evidence. And that's when your life became your lawyer. Every prayer you whispered in the darkness when no one was listening, Exhibit A. Every tear you cried in secret while they celebrated your pain, Exhibit B. Every time you chose kindness when they chose cruelty, Exhibit C. Every moment you held your tongue when you could have destroyed them with truth, Exhibit D. The courtroom fell silent as your daily walk started testifying on your behalf. Your Honor, your life spoke up. While they were plotting in the shadows, this soul was on their knees at 3 a.m., praying for strength to forgive. While they were spreading lies at the dinner table, this one was reading your word, asking for wisdom to respond with grace. Every act of respect became another receipt stacked against their lies. Every time you chose the high road when they took the gutter, documented. Every moment you showed mercy when they showed malice, recorded. Every prayer for your enemies when they cursed your name, filed in eternity. But wait, there's more evidence coming to the stand. Your co-workers were called to testify. Did you ever see them steal? No, Your Honor. They worked harder than anyone. Your neighbors took the stand. Did they ever cause trouble? No, Your Honor. They helped us when we needed it. Your family members, even the ones who didn't always understand you, were they ever cruel or vindictive? No, Your Honor. They loved us even when we didn't deserve it. The prosecuting demons started sweating. Their case was falling apart faster than tissue paper in a thunderstorm. Because here's what Psalm 37:6 promises. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. Your righteousness wasn't hidden in shadows. It was about to blaze like the sun at high noon for everyone to see. Your accusers brought lies, but your life brought receipts. They brought rumors, but your character brought proof. They brought accusations, but your integrity brought vindication. And then, then came the moment, that shattered their confidence forever. The judge looked at your accusers and asked, "Is this all you have? Hearsay and hatred? Where is the evidence of wrongdoing? Where are the witnesses to actual crimes? Where is the proof of this character assassination you've been broadcasting?" Silence. Dead silence. Because when you've lived a life of integrity, when you've walked in truth, even when it cost you everything, when you've chosen righteousness over revenge, the evidence speaks so loudly that lies can't even whisper. Your enemies realized they had walked into a trap of their own making. They thought they were exposing you, but they were actually revealing themselves. Every lie they told became a mirror reflecting their own darkness. Every false accusation became a spotlight on their own character. In Proverbs 19:5, God warns, "A false witness will not go unpunished, and whoever pours out lies will not go free." They thought they were testifying against you, but they were actually sealing their own fate. The cosmic irony was beautiful and terrible all at once. You didn't win because you spoke louder than them. You didn't win because you had better lawyers, or more connections, or deeper pockets. You didn't win because you fought harder, or clapped back stronger. You won because your life was already speaking. Every quiet moment of integrity was a trumpet blast in heaven's courtroom. Every hidden act of kindness was thunder rolling across the spiritual realm. Every private prayer was a witness taking the stand on your behalf. While they were busy crafting lies, you were busy living truth. While they were manufacturing drama, you were building character. While they were destroying reputations with their mouths, you were constructing righteousness with your choices. The verdict was never in question because the evidence was overwhelming. Not the evidence they thought they had against you, but the evidence your daily walk had accumulated in your favor. Romans 8:33 asks the question that ended their case forever. Who will bring any charge against those whom God has chosen? The answer echoes through eternity. No one who will succeed. Because when heaven is your defense attorney and righteousness is your evidence, the case is already closed before it's even opened. Your accusers left that courtroom, defeated, exposed, and empty-handed. But you walked out, vindicated, validated, and victorious. Not because you destroyed them, but because truth defended you without you having to lift a finger. And now, as this divine verdict ripples from the spiritual realm into the natural world, everyone who participated in the lies is about to discover what happens when you fight against someone and heaven has already declared innocent. But this courtroom drama isn't over yet, because the judge is about to issue a sentence that will shake both heaven and earth. Chosen one, if you've stayed with me through this entire journey, your spirit knows this isn't just a message. This is your moment of vindication. Let me remind you of what we've discovered together tonight. When your enemies went digging for dirt, they found gold. When they sent investigators to destroy your reputation, those same investigators became your character witnesses. When they tried to assassinate your integrity, they ended up building monuments to your righteousness instead. Every whispered prayer in your darkest hour became evidence in heaven's courtroom. Every act of kindness when you received cruelty became a receipt filed in eternity. Every time you chose silence over slander, mercy over malice, forgiveness over revenge, you were building a case so strong that even your enemies couldn't tear it down. Remember this truth and hold it close. You didn't win because you were perfect. You won because you were protected. You didn't survive because you were strongest. You survived because you were chosen. Your boring, disciplined life that they mocked became the very shield that defended you. Your quiet consistency that they called insignificant became the loudest testimony of your character. Your peaceful spirit that they tried to break became the unshakable foundation they couldn't crack. And here's what I need you to understand. With every fiber of your being, you are not alone in this. The same God who saw Daniel in the lion's den sees you in your struggle. The same Spirit that strengthened Esther for her moment of destiny is strengthening you for yours. The same Father who vindicated Job after his trial is vindicating you after yours. You have a community here, chosen one. Thousands of people watching this right now know exactly what you've been through because they've walked this same path. In the comments below, I want you to see something beautiful. A family of believers who understand your pain, celebrate your victory, and stand ready to pray with you through whatever comes next. But before we close, I want you to ask yourself this question, and I want you to really sit with it. If God can turn your enemy's investigation into your vindication, what else is he about to flip in your favor? What doors that seemed permanently closed are about to swing wide open? What relationships that seemed irreparably broken are about to be restored? What dreams that seemed dead and buried are about to resurrect with new life? Now, let me pray over you. If you're comfortable, I want you to close your eyes and receive this blessing as if I'm standing right there with you, my hand on your shoulder, speaking these words directly into your spirit. Father God, in the mighty name of Jesus, I lift up every chosen one hearing my voice right now. Lord, you see their tears, both the ones they've cried and the ones they're holding back. You see their scars, both the visible ones and the ones hidden deep in their hearts. You see their struggles, both the battles they're fighting publicly and the wars they're waging in secret. God, I thank you that what the enemy meant for evil, you are turning for good. I thank you that every attack on their character has only polished their reputation. Every lie told about them has only made the truth shine brighter. Every door that was slammed in their face has only positioned them for a better entrance. Lord, breathe new life into their weary spirits. Restore their confidence in your plan. Remind them that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, chosen before the foundation of the world, and loved beyond measure. Let them feel your presence like a warm embrace, your protection like a mighty fortress, and your love like an unending river. Open doors no man can shut. Make ways where there seem to be no ways. Turn their mourning into dancing, their ashes into beauty, their test into their testimony. Let their vindication be so complete, so undeniable, that even their enemies will have to acknowledge your hand upon their lives. In Jesus' mighty name, I speak peace over their minds, healing over their hearts, and victory over their circumstances. Let them sleep tonight knowing they are loved, they are protected, and they are chosen. Amen and amen. Thank you for trusting me with your time tonight. Thank you for opening your heart to receive this word. Thank you for being part of this beautiful community of believers who understand that our greatest victories often come disguised as our greatest trials. If this channel has become a source of encouragement in your spiritual journey, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We're not just building a platform here, we're building a family of faith that stands together, prays together, and rises together. Until next time, chosen one, walk in the confidence of who you are, rest in the peace of whose you are, and remember, your vindication is complete, your victory is secured, and your best days are still ahead. You are loved, you are protected, you are chosen. And that's not just my opinion, that's heaven's verdict.